Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you. It is time once again for This Week in Master Duel, and we have a lot to talk about this week. There have been a lot of happenings here with the latest packs coming out, but even more than that, we have a lot of really interesting competitive stuff to talk about today, because Master Duel meta has not only for us a updated usage and win rate statistics report, but as probably the title and thumbnail of the video are going to imply, today we are going to be looking at the top 100 decks from the Duelist Cup. So top 100 positioned players, we're going to be seeing what they brought. Some people brought one deck, some people brought multiple. There are a lot of interesting lists here that we're going to be checking out. So before we look at that though, we are of course going to start here within Master Duel. We're going to look at the notifications here in Master Duel, see what all has happened this week. Then we'll pop over to Master Duel meta. We do have a few leaks to look at, and then we'll take a look at some of those more competitive results there. So let's go ahead and pop up here to notifications. Like I said, it's been quite a week here in Master Duel. So, oh goodness, yeah, there's been a lot actually. So, Champions of Salvation Secret Pack got updated, the one with Tellarknight and Constellars for the new stuff. New solo mode was added for Boujins. We did that on stream recently, and I had a lot of fun with it. The story was, it was cool seeing how the story tied in with, like, the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX story, because for those who don't know, the Boujin monsters are actually representative of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX characters, and they have the same general, like, silhouette or, like, hair shape as all those characters. And yeah, I mean, that was just really cool. I geeked out. I super geeked out when we were doing this, so that was pretty rad. New accessories, definitely don't miss these, because I mean, I'm really biased, but I love these accessories. It's also really cool that they brought back the Ghost Trick Lantern, so maybe in the future we'll be seeing other previously limited available offer cosmetics being offered in the shop yet again, because this was around last year. But I love these sleeves. I love the Leela Treat sleeves. I love this border, and the Pumpkin avatar looks pretty nice sitting in there as well. And we also have some cosmetics for the new Promethean Princess, Bestower of Flames. That's the card. The new Promethean Princess has some cosmetics as well, icon and some sleeves, so that's pretty neat. A couple of new secret packs. We got a secret pack for both Ice Shade and Goaty. Not a bad pack. This one's not a bad pack at all. Goaty's definitely not a bad deck, and it's nice to be able to actually pull for it now. I can't believe Exosister still doesn't have a secret pack, though. Oh, and the other one here is the Libromancer pack, and it's also got some Cybers cards in it as well. So, funnily enough, I'm not personally very interested in Libromancer. But Topologic Zero Boros and Cyber Gadget are both cards that I've actually been meaning to, like, pick up for some time now. Just haven't had a chance to really craft them yet, but I might just end up pulling from this set instead. Topologic being a pretty solid link 4 to go into with IP. And then Cyber Gadget I want for Sprite Synchro, especially whenever we get Ringo Worm. Because this card, basically the idea is you can normal summon Cyber Gadget and link it into Langribo, right? And then you get your level 2 Cyber token, and that can allow you to special both Sprite Monsters and Ringo Worm. So, yeah, definitely going to be getting a playset of this card once that Ringo Worm comes out for Sprite Synchro. But, yeah, it's a good enough pack, I suppose. Selection pack, Record of Noble Spirits arrived, and I gotta be totally honest with you. Let's even pop over to the shop and take a look at the full list so I can show you that I am not up on this pack at all. I think this pack is very skippable. Like, because here's the thing. I would really only buy this pack if you are trying to play the new Tellarknight / Constellar deck, which, as a deck, it's like, it's okay. Like, it does some neat things, but it's not particularly great. And if we're looking at the rest of this pack, right, like, it's some one-off cards that, like, various decks might end up needing, right? Like, if you're on Sulfur you can honestly just craft the Link 3s, right? If you're on Mathmech or any rank 4 deck, like I did, you can just craft the Sakitamas. If you're on Stun, you know, I guess you could craft yourself some time-sharing Morganite and have fun with that. As much fun as you can have with a Stun deck, but why not? Yeah, I don't see pulling from this pack being particularly good. Oh, Wannabe came out in this set as well. This card's actually not bad for Labyrinth and other back row based decks. It's a good tech option, but yeah, I mean, there's like the stuff in this pack isn't bad. I think it's mostly just spread so far out, like between, you know, all the different URs as far as like what people are actually looking for. And again, like even if you are just trying to play like the Tellarknight deck, Opening this pack for the Exceeds and the Continuous spell, I think is like the only way. And Saki Tom is actually good in Teller Knights as well. But that's like the only way I could really justify spending any amount of gems on this pack, to be totally honest. But let's go back to those notifications here. Round out what's going on here within the client. Duelist Cup rankings were announced as the Duelist Cup wrapped up, and yeah, that was about it. Oh, and the new rank season started as well, so. Alright, that is everything for Master Duel in client, but let's go ahead and take a look at some of these leaks here. So, it wasn't just pack leaks this time around. We did get some data mined leaks for some other stuff as well, including a new mate. A bicycle. A two-wheeled traveling vehicle driven by human power. It is said that owning one will greatly increase the scope of one's activities. It's an interesting lore tidbit for the bicycle, but I'm not gonna lie, I might just rock this when it comes out. It's just so funny. Here's the thing. If you click on this and it makes a bike bell ding ding, I will 100% use this mate. 100%. We have a question icon as well. This is fun. An icon depicting a man deep in thought as he concentrates on a challenging brainstorm session. This is no mere intellectual contest, but is instead a fully immersive experience that involves the extreme tension provided by ever-changing luck. Yeah, you just gotta remember the bottom card in my graveyard, dude. It's not that big of a... Okay. But no. Another cute, little piece of cosmetic there. Mate base for spell cards, a stand in the shape of a card that causes mysterious phenomena. Inscribed on this card is unmistakable marvel. Depending on how it is used, it may create dreamlike euphoria, or even allow us to perceive reality as an illusion. Okay. Allow us to perceive reality as an illusion. I have no idea what they're trying to say there. So this one is actually, these are this is fine. This one's actually a little bit interesting. Certification? Question mark? Certification? So... there seems to be some kind of a certification, icon or display thing, but there's not really any context given for it. It says here in the blurb that there doesn't seem to be any info in the game files on what this certification is. However, this particular asset will be used in the notifications area. So stay tuned for an official announcement / more info in a potential core app update sometime next week. I wonder if we'll get another huge update. Remember when we had one where they introduced the new Duel Live and a bunch of other really nice quality of life changes? Interesting that this will be used in the notifications area. I wonder what certification will be needed in notifications. But I mean, it's always really difficult to speculate on stuff like this because it could be something major, but it could also be something super minor too. So yeah, that'll go ahead and do it for this tab. Here's the other leaks that I wanted to talk about. Oh, you know what? I don't think we've actually formally talked about these in a video. So let me talk about these leaks first. Yes. I've talked about these a lot on stream, and I think I've mentioned them a little bit in my MathMech video. But let's go ahead and cover this just to make sure we are. The new Cybers cards are supposed to be coming out here pretty soon. The three that are showed off here are probably the three most relevant of them. And are probably all going to be URs, except maybe D-Saver can be an SR, but... Firewall Defensor is a level 4 Dark Cyberus with 1,200 attack and 1,500 defense. It says, if this card is sent to the graveyard as material for a link summon of a Cyberus monster, you can special summon one Firewall monster from your deck, except Firewall Defensor. Cannot special summon monsters until you activate its effect, except Cyberus monsters. And also, if a Firewall monster you control be destroyed by card effect, you can banish this from your graveyard instead. But most importantly, Firewall Defensor will allow you to link it off for a link 1, and then pull out a Firewall Guardian from your deck. Firewall Guardian is a card that's already released in Master Duel and can bring itself back from the graveyard if it's used as a link material for the link summon of a Cyberus monster, but it just then banishes itself the next time it leaves the field. But Defensor by itself is pretty much a full combo line for MathMech. It just doesn't set up Super Factorial like Circular would, but it still ends you on Terahertz or Transcode plus Heat Soul. Defensor by itself can also be an Update Gem or Access Code OTK. The card's very, very good. Cyberus D-Save Worm. I'm actually not going to read out this whole card because the only thing that is relevant for this card is the fact that, one, it's an extra deck monster, and two, if you control a Link... when your opponent activates a spell, trap card, or effect while you control a Link 4 or higher Cyberus monster, as a quick effect, you can banish this card from your field or graveyard, negate that activation. So, the Terahertz now becomes, in my opinion, they go to turn 1 play, for a Math Mech, as you can set up the D-Save Worm in the graveyard on your turn, which will be a spell trap card negate on your opponent's turn, but then also on your opponent's turn, you can still send a Mirror Logic Aggregator off of Terahertz to negate a different card. So, yeah, I mean, this is just like, again, we're not actually fusion summoning this, we're literally just dumping this off of Terahertz's effect, but it'll be a very, very, very good card for doing that. There is also a new Link 6 Firewall Link monster. Firewall Dragon Singularity is a Link 6 Cyberus with 3,500 attack. It takes 3 or more effect monsters, so it does have very generic requirements. Alright, you can target cards your opponent controls and or in their graveyard up to the number of different types of monsters between Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, or Xyz. Note, no Pendulum or Link. You control and in your graveyard return them to the hand, and if you do, this card gains 500 attack for each card returned. If a monster this card points to is destroyed by battle or sent to the graveyard, you can target one Cyberus monster in your graveyard, special summon it. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. So, this card is definitely neat, but I don't know how good it actually is, because, like, it's not impossible to make this in a deck like Math Mech. I mean, when I think of Cyberus decks, I'm mostly thinking of Math Mech, so that's going to be my personal frame of reference. I will say this card is a lot better in, like, a Code Talker deck, right? But I'm thinking about, like, for Math Mech in particular, I guess. I don't really see much of a reason to make this and not make Terahertz or Access Code, right? Because this does offer multiple bounces as a quick effect, so setting this up on turn 1 is not awful by any means, but it requires a lot of setup, right? Like, to even get one bounce, you have to have already Ritual, Fusion, Synchroed, or Xyzed. And really, one quick effect bounce, is that really worth going into a Link 6? Like, I think if you can bounce 2 or more cards, this is worth it. But then it's like, okay, now I need to set up 2 of these alternate card types in my graveyard, which for some decks might not be difficult, but again, I'm mostly thinking of Math Mech, which can really only get an Xyz monster in the graveyard. I mean, yeah, there is the fusion. I know I did just talk about setting up the D-Save Worm in the yard, but I don't know. At the same time, you would have to give up your Terahertz in order, like, you would still have to make Terahertz and send this, and then likely use it as a material in order to summon the Firewall Dragon Singularity, which would still need 2 other monsters. And the other thing about this card is that it has an OTK, and Cyberus piles, particularly, again, I'm mostly thinking of Math Mech, but Cyberus piles already have Link 4s that can OTK, and Terahertz is a Link 5 that can disrupt multiple times, and also OTK. Again, in Code Talkers, I can definitely see this being a little bit more viable, but for something like Math Mech, I have a really hard time seeing how Firewall Dragon Singularity makes the cut. It's not a bad card. I want to preface that, too. It's not a bad card by any means. I just am not, like, I just think we have better options in most Cyberus extra decks. And it looks like this pack will also be featuring a reprint of Kurikara Divine Coronet. That's neat. Alright, now the other leaks I was going to talk about earlier are Duelist, which is the Hungry Burger archetype, which is cute and fun. I'm not going to bother reading all of these cards because there are a lot here, and also, like, I gotta be honest with you, I'm probably not going to play this deck. If I happen to pull everything for it and don't need to dismantle stuff for extra materials, then I will maybe try it, but this deck is really cute. That Hungry Burger is a deck. Hungry Burger, of course, being a fan favorite vanilla ritual monster. But as a deck, it's like, it's meh. It's okay. It's not, like, awful. You can seek wins with this, and you could probably reasonably get to Master with this, but I think any higher than, like, Master 5, maybe you'd be very hard-pressed to do with a deck like this. But, I don't know. I could also be a bit harsh in my judgment, considering I haven't played with or against the deck yet. Alright, card game usage, or game card, rather, usage / win rate report update for October 30th. Is it no surprise to anybody that Maxi and Ash Blossom are still the most used cards? There's not even really any huge significant jumps here. I mean, I guess Ash Blossom is up by 3%. That actually is noteworthy. Even at like 80+%, but I don't know. I think a lot of the reason is because of Labyrinth. Maybe some decks that wouldn't normally be on Ash Blossoms are trying to counter Lab a little bit more, but Imperm is way up. Oh my god. Imperm is way up from 72, or from 63 rather, to 72%. And then we also have Zeus up to 71%. The Zeus being up is not surprising at all because of Kashira. And also because Zeus is like so good in this meta. Like so good in this meta. Zeus is kind of like the great equalizer of the current format, in my opinion, because not only can Purley and Cash pretty easily make this card, but it's also really good against both Purley and Cash, and Lab as well, so... Excuse me. A lot of people don't like Zeus, like, in general, but I think this format would honestly be more miserable to play in if we didn't have Zeus to help us wipe these boards. That's just my take, but... As far as Imperm seeing an almost 10% increase in play, I wonder if that's because it's good against Cash and Purley. That would be my guess. I can't think of another reason why it would jump so dramatically in such a low amount of time. Alright, Call by the Grave is down. Not by a whole lot, but almost 5% is still noteworthy. I think this is mostly because of Purley not playing the card. As more people are playing Purley, as it is established as the best deck in the meta. Also gonna, for the millionth time, say, haha, I told you so. I knew Purley was gonna be better than Cash, but anyway. Call by the Grave, yeah. With Purley not really using it because they don't really care about Maxi, it makes sense. Also, Lab doesn't always use this card, which is kind of weird to me because, like, the argument to not play Call by in Lab seems, from what I've seen people say, is, oh, you don't care about Maxi, and it's like, if only there were another hand trap that was a monster that you really, really cared about as Lab. That, of course, being Ash Blossom, so... I might still try Call by in Lab, who knows. Fenrir is way up, obviously because Kashira. This is the first update for usage and win rate stuff since Kashira has come out, by the way, so. Fenrir, yeah, was at 40, up to 53.5, makes sense. Cross that designator, up 8%. I guess that makes sense, yeah. Mostly, I think, to counter, like, Fenrirs and stuff, but... So we have Baron seeing a spike, rather, from 33 to 45%. I think that's, again, mostly because of Kashira. Kashira can play this card pretty much for free, because they already play Ash Blossoms in level 7s, and their extra deck is wide open. It might be a bit surprising to some people to see a Rise Heart as the next most played Kashira card after Fenrir, considering Era is also way, way down, but... You gotta remember that a lot of people are playing a Rise Heart specifically because they are playing Fenrir, and if you have an extra deck slot, you can throw in a Rise Heart, and then if you're playing against Kashira, right, and they bring out Shangri-Era, you can special your Fenrir and then turn it into a Rise Heart just by itself, because a Rise Heart does not care which player controls the Shangri-Era that was activated. I think for the vast majority of decks... I don't know. I think if you're playing something like Lab, you can get away with this. But I've seen a lot of decks playing the Arise Heart that, frankly, should not be. I think having an extra deck slot dedicated to, if you are playing a certain matchup, which is already a very bricky one, and they're not at all guaranteed to go off or even make Era. If I play this matchup, if I go second, if they don't brick, if they go off, if I don't have Disruption, if they have Era, if I draw Fenrir, then I can play this Rise Heart. I don't find that a compelling reason, honestly. Again, a deck like Lab has the space for it, but I think just about any other deck, it's probably a mistake to put this card in your extra deck if you're not on Kashira. Even if you are playing the Fenrir. That's my personal opinion on it. Alright, 30+% Thrust, seeing play at 38.4% to, I'm sure, nobody's surprise. This card is not only a very good staple card, but it's also just a very good card in general. Oh, I meant to touch on, I completely glossed over Triple Tactics talent. That's quite the jump. This card has seen almost double as much play as it did before. And a lot of reason for that is Triple Tactics Thrust. Now, there are a lot of decks that actually would want to play a set of Triple Tactics talent and not play any Thrusts at all. Mainly like Purley is the main example of that, or other decks that don't have a lot of good normal spell or trap cards to search. Which is why Triple Tactics Talent sees more play than Triple Tactics Thrust, but you can definitely thank Thrust for the spike in talent play, because now, if you're playing Thrust, it becomes really easy to play like one Triple Tactics Talent, so makes sense. Underworld got us up by 1%, I don't really think that's very significant. We have a few Kashira cards that are up to the range of like 33-35%. Not surprising, we are seeing more of like the generic ones, right? Like Rate Soft to grab the Fenrir or Unicorn. Unicorn and the Birth that it grabs. Birth being a free extender, even if you're not playing a full cash engine. And yeah, I mean, a lot of non-Kashtira decks are also on the Rate South again. Like Tier Laments is pretty much always on Rate South. Punk, if you're playing a cash package, is probably on the Rate South, so makes sense, makes sense. And I'm laughing because we're at the 25+%, which is the exception, with the exception of Prosperity and Feather Duster. Feather Duster seeing pretty much no change. Prosperity seeing a decent jump, likely because of Kashtira. The rest of 25+% is all Kashtira cards, and not only that, they're all cards that you would play in like a dedicated Kashtira deck, right? Theosis, Riseheart, Ira, Scareclaw, and Big Eye. These are all cards that are, again, if you're not on like a dedicated Kashtira package, then you're probably not playing these cards. So I think it's really interesting that these cards are seeing, because not a lot of meta decks lately have hit this threshold of like getting into the 25% plus. I think that shows that Kashtira had a lot of hype going into it. And I don't know that I've ever seen a deck in Master Duel fall harder on its face in the wake of such hype. Now, of course, Kashtira is still topping tournaments out there. Not nearly as many as people expected or thought, but it is still doing it. And it is, of course, still a Tier 1 deck. I'm not saying Kashtira is bad by any means, but again, for the millionth time, I'm going to put on my I told you so hat. And once again, give this message specifically to all the people who naysayed me when I said this. A Riseheart is not that bad. It has no inherent protection effect. It'll automatically prop the triple tactics cards. It's really easily like stopped by like Imperm, literally any monster effect negate. As I said on Twitter, you can smashing ground this asshole. You can use smashing ground on a Riseheart. It doesn't even have targeted or destruction protection. And when I made that point in particular, a lot of people were like, this person's never heard of Forbidden Lance. Yes, all the Forbidden Lances that are in all the Kashtira decks in this meta, clearly. But anyway, yeah. It's so interesting to see this deck fall so flat on its face. And while, again, it is still a Tier 1 deck, it's definitely not living up to this usage rate hype. Also, one thing that I think is really interesting about this, despite seeing high usage rates of 25% plus for its core archetype cards, Kashtira hasn't made it into Konami's win rate statistics just yet. Now, that wasn't true of Pearly. That was not true of the new Labyrinth cards. It's not been true of any new cards that have come out since we've had win rate statistics. But for whatever reason, Konami has decided not to release Kashtira win rate statistics just yet. I suspect that they are not releasing them because they are very low. They might even be below 50%. And I think if people saw that, right, they would not be buying the Kashtira selection pack, which is still in the shop right now. I'm going to call this right now. As soon as that pack leaves this shop, we're going to get the Kashtira win rate statistic, and it's going to be like, I don't think it'll actually be below 50%. It'll barely be above 50%. That's my prediction right now. Again, I don't think we're going to see Kashtira's win rate statistic until after the pack rotates out, and when we finally get to see it, it's going to be way lower than a lot of people realize. As far as the top decks by win rate, we have Dragon Link, then Mathmech, then Pearly, then Flu. Honestly, this isn't really particularly surprising. Not even seeing Lab relatively far down. You might be thinking, well, isn't Lab supposed to be like one of the best decks in the meta? Why is it lower than stuff like D-Link and Mathmech? Two reasons. One, Lab is a very, very difficult deck to play, especially optimally. There's so many decision points in that deck. I kind of wonder if anyone can even play that deck optimally, like making every single decision correct 100% of the time. And two, you know, the more popular a deck or slash the higher tier ranking a deck is, right? The more people will be on it, and the more people that are on a deck, actually that will end up overall lowering its overall win rate, which sounds really weird, right? That might not make a lot of sense, but you got to remember that if people are playing a deck because it's the top tier 1 deck and not because they know it well, they're going to be making more mistakes with that as opposed to somebody who is playing the deck because they know it well. So that's why these higher ranked decks tend to be ranked a little bit lower in terms of win rate than some of the decks that are lower than them on the tier list, is because, again, more people are playing the deck, ergo more people are making mistakes, ergo the win rate is a little bit lower. And again, Lab is just a very, very complex deck. Evil Eye, still above 50%. which is pretty rad. Dragon Link appears to be staying fairly consistent, 54% plus win rate. And interestingly, the highest on archetypal card this time is Synchro Zone at 55.5%. Currently, it's seeing some play in Chaos decks, but these are few and far between. I've seen this mostly in Stun. This is pretty much a floodgate for attacks for the most part, but... Alright, now that we've covered the win and usage rate statistics, let's finally look at the top 100 decks in Duelist Cup. I'm not going to go through each 100 decks, like, card by card. But I will talk about some of the things that made these top lists unique. Global rank number 1 was not a particularly unique list. It was a very by-the-books Pearly deck. Which honestly, that isn't very surprising to me. Like, I think this took a lot of people by surprise. They're like, all these other decks are playing weird tech, but this regular Pearly deck won? And it's like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, it's the same thing where I've had YouTube comments, not like a lot, but every now and then in the past that are like, oh, Hex, your builds are always so standard or by the book. You never branch out and try unique, fun tech. And it's like, yeah, most of the time I don't. It's 'cause I don't think it's worth trying. Like, as boring as a more, like, quote-unquote generic-looking build might be, it's going to give you the best performance, in my opinion. So, I'm not surprised to see nothing weird happening in the Pearly deck that got first. But that's not going to be true of most Pearly decks you'll see in this top 100. A lot of them are on this Ghost Trick package. Now, again, I'm going to predict what maybe some people are thinking or are going to say, which is... Oh, Hex, you've said the Ghost Trick package is so awful in the past, and now look at it. It's winning, and it's not only getting global rank number 2, but we're going to be seeing the vast majority of Pearly decks are on the Ghost Trick package. How wrong were you about that? Here's the thing. I thought the Ghost Trick package was bad when people were going into UDF plus at Pearly Noir. But what people are actually doing now with it is they're going into So Cute Boss and going into a second X Pearly Noir, which I think 2 X Pearly Noir is much better than UDF plus X Pearly Noir. I'm so down on my opinion of UDF in this meta. Whenever I see a Pearly or a Kashtira deck going into UDF, I'm just like, why? Why are you making this card? It's like, you consume so many resources to do so, and it's like, I don't think it's worth it. This card is, like, especially for Kashtira, like, this card is so easy to steal with triple tack because of Arise Heart, and then you can just steal their Arise Heart, but, like, I don't know. In Pearly, you don't have that problem, I guess, because if you make this alongside the X Pearly Noir, then you don't have that problem, because this will obviously be unaffected by opponent's card effects, but at the same time, I just don't think it's worth it, like, as your default turn 1 play. Now, again, making 2 X Pearly Noir, I think that is much better. Much better. And then here we have Ryan. Ryan Yu getting 3rd global rank with Labyrinth. Teching 3 Contact C's against Pearly. It's also just not bad in general in this meta, I don't think. They were on call buys, which I think is interesting. And also Extrav plus Prosperity, which again... I'm going to put on my I Told You So hat again, because I've played both these in Lab in the past, and people have told me it's awful. But, like, I didn't think it was, and it's not, so. Haha, I told you so. Oh, Runic Stun. Always a mainstay of the Duelist Cup. Not hard to get quick wins at this. Here we have another Pearly on the Ghost Trick package. Again, you're going to be seeing the majority of Pearly lists here on the Ghost Trick package, but they're also, again, going to be on So Cute Boss going into a second X Pearly Noir. Again, I don't think UDF is a good card in this meta. Another Pearly with Ghost Trick. This player was on a couple of different decks. Some players will bring multiple decks to the Duelist Cup. That way they can, like, you know, switch if the meta tends to favor one deck or the other. Looks like this person brought both Branded Despia and Twin Sprite, which there's a couple of Twin Sprite lists here. It makes me want to try out Live Twin Sprite yet again. I might do that this season. Alright, this person on Lab and D-Link. Here's the other, both in top 10. Wow, the other Live Twin Sprite list. I think a lot of the reason that these players were on this deck was to go into Cat, Shark, and Mosquito OTKs very easily. As in Duelist Cup, not only winning a lot, but winning quickly matters quite a bit. But still obviously a very good deck, held its own. Let's see, this one's Pearly with Ghost Trick. This person's on 3 different decks. They have Despia, Runic Stun, and Mathmech. All the Mathmech lists from the Duelist Cup were on Microcoder, I still don't see it. I don't get it. Like, here's my take on microcoder, right? I don't understand why you would play this and the counter trap card when you could just play Gachuri at Ignister. I know the cards do very different things, but in terms of extenders, right? This one is like, I think it's just kind of mid. I don't know. The Gachuri is a better body. It's easy to... Like, granted, you don't have to summon this one, which is the pro of it, but like... There's just been so many times where I open or draw Senate Conflict, and I'm just like, God, I wish this were literally any other card in my deck. Like, this card's also not good unless you specifically set it going first, in my opinion. Like, it's really hard to get good use out of it beyond that. I don't know. I just don't think it's that great of a card. I don't think it's a good enough card to warrant going into microcoder for, but I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying it's bad. Like, this person obviously did very well with it, but... That's my personal take. Here's our first Kashira list at 14. You're not going to see a lot of Kashira in the top 100 here. Also on D-Link, here's a pure Sprite list. Interesting that they're on Nimble Manta, but it does make sense because they're not on Mosquito. Although I will say I don't think that makes sense that they're not on Mosquito. The Trisbania is actually a great Link 3 to go for with IP. I think this is definitely better than Nightmare Unicorn. I don't know that I really get the Appaloosa, though. Like, I feel like I would have just played the Shadow Mosquito instead, and then we would have had another OTK option, because we could have played Sunfish instead of Manta, but... Unless there's a way you can pop your own Manta that I'm missing, but I don't think there is. Because, well, even if there was, you would just play 3 of this then, right? Yeah, I don't get it, but... Finally, we see a Pearly that's on the Dark World package. I think it's, like, the only one, too. I still don't think these are good. I still don't think the Dark Worlds are good. Like, I don't think they're bad, but I think you could pretty much always be playing something better than the Dark Worlds and Pearlies, in my opinion. Runic Stun is Runic Stun. We have Tri-Sprite is another Sprite variant that made it into... I think Sprite is, like, criminally underrated still. Maybe that'll change after the Duelist Cup because there were so many Sprite lists here, but I still think the deck is criminally underrated. This was like the only Pearly deck that was on the Ghost Trick package and not playing the So Cute boss, which I 100% disagree with. Like, yeah, I just don't think it's good. I don't think UDF is good. Labyrinth, doing pretty standard stuff. Here's Tearlament, the deck that never dies. Got another Pearly on Ghost Trick, Pearly on Ghost Trick, and then also Mathmech, but they're definitely on some stuff here like Salesman. The Code Generator, they're playing the Lady Debug package, which, if you're going to be playing Microcoder, then I think the Lady Debug package makes that make more sense, but I still don't think that's right, personally. Again, I won't argue with results, like, obviously this person did well, but I still don't think that's right for an optimal Mathmech build myself. More Tearlaments, as well as a Zephyr Pile. I'm not even going to pretend to understand how these work. Another Cash list. Another Mathmech list. Interesting that the dedicated Mathmech player was not on the Microcoder package. Everybody else playing Microcoder and Mathmech was on that plus another deck. But the dedicated Mathmech player did not bring Microcoder. Just want to point that out. Ghost Trick Pearly. Tearlament with the Soldier Palm. We have D-Link here. Lab. 2 different lab variants. It's kind of interesting. Runic Stun. Excuse me. Oh, this Pearly list was on Brow. And Shadal Beast. I don't agree with this either, but... Oh, excuse me. They were also on, like, this deck, which I can only describe as, like, Bestial Disrupt? Like, it's weird, because it's not branded. Like, they're playing Albaz and Branded Fusion, but those are the only branded cards. They're playing 3 Diviner to send... I don't even actually know what you send here off Diviner. Another Diviner? I guess? Such an odd list, but it's a... Oh, no, you sent the Herald, of course. Oh, and then you can add the Soravis, which I guess that's a way to search for it, but... Yeah, I don't know. It's a really, really, really interesting deck. I would love to pick this person's brain about how this deck works, because this is the kind of list that definitely appeals to me. Ghost Trick Pearly, Mathmech. This person is on Microcoder. Got Lab, Ghost Trick Pearly, Shadal Pearly, sure. Tri-Sprite on the Nimble Musabi. People say the Nimbles, like Nimble Umaga and Nimble Musabi, are cope in this deck, but I 100% disagree with that. Like, obviously, you would rather play Beavers, but, like, it's still fine to play the Mamanga or Musabi. Here's Trap Tricks making it in 79th. There goes Trick Pearly. Here's Scareclaw making it in. Goes Trick Pearly. Another Lady Debug Mathmech deck. Again, if you are going to be on Microcoder and Code Generator and that kind of thing, I think you should be playing Lady Debug. But again, I also don't think this is an optimal build of Mathmech right now. Goes Trick Pearly. Adventure Phantom Knight. Oh, this was the one towards the end I wanted to get to. I've always loved this deck. And if you go back to, like, when Water Enchantress and Fusion Destiny first got limited, I said in videos multiple times that people were super sleeping on this deck because it didn't actually get hurt by those limits. Because unlike other decks that would use these cards, right? Adventure Phantom Knight actually uses these as part of their main combo line. Like, your main combo line will send the Water Enchantress off the Cherubini, and then we'll also go into Vert to send the Fusion Destiny from deck. But whenever I try to, like, tell people, like, hey, this deck's actually pretty good, they'd be like, but Water Enchantress and Fusion Destiny are at 1. And it's like, again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because it's part of the combo. That was so baffling to me. Like, YouTube comments and other players I spoke with would just repeat that every time I said, hey, I think this deck is good. It's like, oh, but those cards are at 1. And every time I'd point out, like, hey, you use them as part of the combo line, the response is always like, huh, well, I still don't think it's that good. And, like, sometimes Yu-Gi-Oh! Players just get this idea about a deck, and they, for whatever reason, refuse to budge from it. I don't know why Yu-Gi-Oh! Players as a whole decided that Adventure Phantom Knight wasn't good when these cards got limited, but they're wrong. They were all wrong back then, and this Duelist here is showing us that we are still wrong now. Makes you want to bust this deck, especially because, like, this deck isn't even using any, like, new tech. The only cards that are in this build that were not in it, like, over a year ago are 2 copies of Cashier Offender, and that's literally it. Yeah, I love Phantom Knights. I still have all the stuff for it, and I really want to pull this deck out again after seeing this person do so well. Yeah, makes me feel like I've been sleeping on the deck, and again, I'm the one who's been advocating for it, but... And we're going to round it off with the most exciting Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck ever, Runic Stun. So, yeah, there we go. That is going to go ahead and do it for this breakdown of not only the top 100 Duelist Cup decks, but again, all the various happenings this week in Master Duel. So this was a bit of a longer one, but we did have a lot to talk about. Thank you all so very much for watching, especially for watching here all the way to the end. Let's just go ahead and move now, to our outro. Alright everybody, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you for watching it all the way to the very end. That means a whole lot to me, and it's also a fantastic way to support the channel. And if you're interested in supporting the channel in other ways besides YouTube, there are plenty of ways to do that. If you check out the description below, you'll find a bunch of links down there. One of them goes to my Patreon. You're actually seeing the names of everyone subscribed to the Patreon on the screen right now. So if you're interested in getting your name in the credits here at the end, if you want to see more daily Master Duel content, or if you're interested in one-on-one private coaching sessions, I offer all of that on Patreon. I also stream live on Twitch. Feel free to go ahead and click that link and follow and or subscribe there. I also have the Discord community, if you want to follow that link, where hundreds of duelists have already signed up. Free to join, and you can just come hang out, talk about the game, and chill in general. Final link that's going to be in the description is my Twitter. You can follow that if you want some more notifications of what's happening with the channel. So, all in all, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.